Oh, brother, you know it's bad. You know it's bad if y'all gotta bring the anime man back out of retirement to talk about tourists and things of the sort like that. Which, honestly, I've seen this whole thing when it comes down to, the anime men and, what they were trying to do essentially with the video and stuff like that. Obviously terrible, but when it comes down to it though, it's crazy when the anime man comes back through. I haven't watched him in years. I know I said back in the past that I very much am inspired to do anime content because of his channel, and yes, very much so. That is still very much the case. Even if I ever got the chance to meet the man, it would still be an honor. But when it comes down to it though, I just haven't watched him too much because he doesn't do anime style content anymore, right? This is the first time in years I've watched him, honestly. So to keep it very much a stack, he was basically going about the, obviously the issue of anime tourists and kind of giving his thoughts about it. And you know what? Fair play. Man has said basically everything that more or less I would very much say my damn self when it comes down to it. Because yes, ultimately, if you're someone that's new that comes into the anime space, there is no issue with anybody that's new coming in. It's only the fact that you come through and at least respect what anime is, try to understand what it actually, is and stuff like that. Its history, its culture, and not try to be on some bull. We won't have any problems. Unfortunately, a lot of people have problems with anime, and that's exactly why you get a bunch of dumbasses come through, do what they do about it, talk about it in all these sort of ways, and then cause issues for everyone. Like, it's not a giant surprise to really just see how perplexing it is for, people to see these new anime fans to come through, quote, new anime fans to come through, and essentially just be like, yeah, what the hell's going on here? This doesn't make any sort of sense, right? Because obviously we have dealt with issues of people trying to control what we have, in our entertainment, what we want to see, try to censor things of age and, genders and things of the sort like that, and obviously the localization problems that we've been having for years in anime and things of the sort like that. And it's just been a terrible time. It's been a terrible time for literally anybody that very much still loves anime the way they do, the way they have loved it since the early 2000s, the old 90s days of time and things of sort like that. It's been pain. It's been unfortunate pain, and it's not necessarily been something that people really F with when it comes down to new anime fans, quote, new anime fans, come through and try to change up what the genre or the medium really actually is. And that just, it's just been a terrible time. And also, since I never made a video talking about anime tourists in particular, and this is the first time I'm gonna do so, let me just straight up get real serious with you. Anime has been a part of my DNA since Baby J Senpai was a thing, right? It was a part of me since I seen early, or really I should say more later, Dragon Ball, when it comes down to, Goku meeting Yajirobe for the first time. I've seen it when we had the Forest of Death sequence of episodes, that whole marathon running on Cartoon Network back in the day, right? I've seen anime in ways and forms that I probably shouldn't have seen at such a young age, with Cell absolutely ramming his tail through 18 in a certain animation by a certain purple-haired woman that very much liked tentacles. There is so much shit I've seen just over the years of it, and you know what? Each and everything, while it may not necessarily been my cup of tea of what obviously I would like in every single scenario, it is still the most interesting thing to just straight up go out and watch. And that's how a lot of people feel. The reason why so many people went to watch anime when it was on television back then, and even now, when you had people to just, maybe get into it before everybody started getting into it and all that sort of stuff, the reason why you had that is because people were bored of regular TV. People were bored of things that we had in the West. The reason why there are so many influxes of Americans, or, people from, Mexico, or people from, the UK or Europe or whatever, the reason why they have, their taste into anime is because They like what they see. They like something that is new, unique, different, strange, weird, all the other stuff that makes up anime to be what it is. We like it because it's not our normal shit. And that's the reason why, to this day, people still very much love anime. They like to see what weird, crazy ideas Japan can make. And we don't want to really see it change when it comes down to it. Whether it's Yoshi P talking about how JRPGs should be just RPGs and then they should be one and the same, when no, JRPGs are way cooler and way more interesting at times than what RPGs can regularly do. Sometimes you get the ones that hit, but sometimes, and most of the times, you really don't get a lot of the ones that, you know, will hit on that sort of level. And to be real, and just to expand a little bit more outside of anime, you know, if we really were to rely on the Western side of the world to really create content and stuff, you're gonna get bangers here, there, and there, but it's nothing like what anime can produce, or what Japan and a lot of these Asian Eastern countries could really do. Especially now, with things like a Kingdom Hearts, you know, a Final Fantasy, a Dragon Ball, a Genshin Impact, a Honkai, you know, things like Nikkei, Stellar Blade, you know, Wukong, and all that sort of stuff. There is so much shit that exists outside of Western space that is far more interesting to me and far more interesting to a lot of people than what you would get on the Western side of the space. You honestly, if you really look at the space in general, tons of times you don't really see many people get hyped up for Western games at nearly as much as you would see it for like a Japanese game, or like a like a Resident Evil or something like that, or get hyped up for like a new gacha game that comes out of China or something like that, or whatever. Like, there is so many different things about the Eastern side that is just interesting because we ain't over there. So whatever they produce is going to be immediately interesting to us, and that's just how it is. And going out to talk about anime and looking at different anime and the shows that exist out there, bitch, it's like going to a nude beach that you've never been to before ever in your life, and then you're getting just countless amounts of just nothing but straight fine ass cheeks that is just coming your way in the best sort of way possible. And it's just like, damn, you basically getting set up for the good shit. It's amazing. You're gonna still have a bad time with maybe with some ugly hoes come through, maybe not give you the best service that you know you possibly would want, sure, but it's still a good time in whatever section of it that you basically enjoy. Wild ass analogy aside, you get the point. It was a haven for people, especially among nerd and geek culture, and really just people that don't have a lot of friends at the time. Because when it comes down to it, bitch, we just enjoyed what we enjoyed. We very much liked it, and very much trying to find an anime fan out in the wild was like, oh shit, you know? Nowadays, it don't feel like that. Nowadays, basically everybody knows what it is. Everybody is in the know, and it's not nearly as the cool club as it used to be, which granted, it's not really a club that people were ever at all really was trying to keep to themselves, but ultimately it was a club that people respected, enjoyed, and, you know, peered into to see what it's really all about. Nowadays, it's a club that very much has to feel like it needs to be gatekept in some shape and form, has to be, you know, locked down in some shape and form, because of jackasses online that gets really into these mediums and use it for some type of political reason, try to use it for some type of censorship reason, and all this other stuff, when in reality there's more problems in the real world that you should fix way more before you ever think about touching anything of the fictional side and element of life itself. I do agree with the anime man's take that without these anime tourists, you know, we wouldn't see a lot of money going into the anime industry, and, you know, they wouldn't necessarily have a lot of the gear and stuff that they need to make good quality anime now. I agree with that. However, it's those very same tourists that's still causing a lot of issues. I'm not blind to the fact that yes, they do help out when it comes down to making anime a lot more bigger and better in certain varieties. But there's also a issue. There's really no fat way of getting rid of anime tourists. They will always be here. But ultimately, that doesn't necessarily mean we need to put up with them trying to change the medium of what it is, right? there is still, to this day, and again, if you don't like certain things about anime, that's perfectly fine. Ain't nobody mad at you for it. But there is still so many people that is just like, I don't understand why they have so many high school characters in anime. Why is the lolly showing her butt to people on TV? I don't understand. Why do Japan put up with such this predator nonsense when it comes down to it? I don't get it. Like I said in the lolly video that I did like a few days ago, which go back and hype it up please. Essentially, what I ended up saying was that ultimately it's gonna be something that's not for you, but also at the same time too, it is something that has been a part of anime for literal years, since the real deal start of it, if we're gonna be honest. Because if it wasn't for lollies doing things that they've done, you wouldn't have half the shit of what anime actually is. There is really two reasons why I even made that video a few days ago. One, I just miss talking about lollies. I'm not gonna say a lot, sit here and lie. I really did miss talking about the subject in some shape and form in a dumbass way. But also, I did this out of spite because of how weird and overly crazy for changes that a lot of these new anime tourists try to be when it comes down to it, right? Ultimately, it's not something that's going to go away. It's not something that you're going to just sit here and change. And the fact that there is activist groups in Japan, activist groups just in general, credit card companies, all these people in general, in whatever way, shape, and form, trying to change not just, you know, obviously the lolly aspect of things, but just anime itself, really trying to change a culture of a country itself, is crazy. It is crazy as hell to do. That's why you have people like Chibi Reviews basically trying to clap back in whatever way possible against censorship and talking about it however they can. Why people like A Hero Hate exist and talk about the stuff that they do. Why I do now try to talk about this sort of stuff and keep you aware of censorship changes when it comes down to it, because this shit should not be changed. If you want to, you know, see an anime that very much has Western sensibilities, you know, obviously the sensitivity stuff that the West like to do, make your own shit, right? You can make your own show. You can make your own shit, and that's just how it is. Ultimately, though, do not try to bring this shit to anime. Try to change what it is when it hasn't been a real deal issue, you know, ever, right? It just is what it is, and it's crazy how many people are just in the realm of, yeah, we need to change it, you know, to fit our needs, when it's not really what should be the case. He also made a funny ass point in the video that he talked about. He saw somebody said that this new era of like anime people are essentially just like the Christopher Columbus era, and that is so damn true. I agree with that 100%. You got all these new people coming through, you know, existing, trying to be like, this anime, all of these animes are mine now. We own this shit. Only shonen shit is good, and only certain shonen shit is good, because if you add a weird ass pervert character in there, you a bitch, and that's just how it is, right? That is essentially how all these people are, when in reality, bitch, you don't own not a damn thing. We don't even own a damn thing. You know who really owns anime for real? The Japanese people that made it. They're the people that owns it. We just exist to watch the shit, and if they come up with some good shit, we can talk about it, we can discuss it, we can have fun with it. But ultimately, that's just how it is. We are just outsiders looking in. That is what we do. Not a one time did we ever really say for the OGs, we need to change anime for what it is. Not once did we ever really say something like that. The only thing that most of us will really say is that we write our own stuff, that we make our own fan fiction or whatever. That is what we would do in those certain instances, right? And you know, because obviously there is things about anime and just, you know, things of Gensai culture and stuff like that that obviously people don't care for, right? Like having a main character not necessarily get with a girl that obviously is into him, or they take 5,000 years to get that whole story going. Like NTR obviously is a thing that I don't care for, and a lot of people don't care for, stuff like that. But ultimately though, that's the whole reason of why It's fiction. You can craft whatever the hell you want to. It's the same thing with like something like a RWBY, if we want a Western example. You don't like what RWBY is and what they do story-wise? Perfectly fine. Create your own story. You can do that. You can absolutely do that. When it comes down to it, ain't nobody gonna sit here and stop you, right? If you want to make a better story, that's perfectly fine. But ultimately though, you know, that's just something that you can do for you. You don't necessarily have to go super hard into trying to change what it is. You know, you could just make something for yourself, and that's just how it is. But to these anime tourists, they are just like, no, it must be shonen, a good shonen, and that is it. We don't accept anything else. If it's popular, the better, because that's the most basic bitch one, and all that sort of stuff. It's possibly the reason why I won't ever really sit down and take a lot of anime in like I used to, right? There was an era where I actually did watch a lot of anime and really cared a lot about what was out there, right? But ultimately, I just started not caring nearly as much, not really wanting to explore things unless it's like a show in the past I've heard people say is good and I might give it a try, but that's really about it. This day and age, I don't really care to watch most new shows. If it's not an ecchi show or some type of show that obviously has some raunchy content in there or some weird content that exists in there, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna sit here and care that much, right? And that's just how it is for me. And funny enough, I've been having fun watching a lot of ecchi shows like a Nukitashi. It's the reason why I've been covering it almost every week when it comes down to it. You know, things like plus size alpha nibbles coming out. That shit was amazing. Didn't think fat women were gonna be amazing and hot in anime, but yet somehow anime in Japan just does it. They know how to cook, right? Things of the sort like that is what I've been here for. Things like an Edaton Deities, an interspecies reviewer, you know, even the damn short ass anime with, you know, asking to see some boobs in Dogiza or whatever the hell that anime was called. Even something as short and stupid as that is somehow amazing, and I was here for it. That is how it is. Ultimately, anime is a great ass medium. It is fantastic. The weird ass ideas that people come up with is great. You just need to accept it that that's what it is. Because again, you get weird ass bills like what's going on in Texas the past, and it's like, huh, it's funny how you have real predators out really in the real world, you know, harming kids, doing all of this sort of stuff, but you care more for, you know, trying to ban pixels on the screen and all that sort of stuff. It's crazy how you have all these real world problems that really should be solved, but then you care so much about what your average citizen is doing that's not really doing anything of, you know, illegal content or anything like that, but you care more about that than actual real world problems. And it's like, do you not see the connected BS that's happening here? Like, 2020 did some brain damage to a lot of people. And hell, let's just be even more real, and I'm gonna say a hot take here that might be hot, I don't know, but when it comes down to even things of VTubing, you can very much contribute that to anime tourists sort of like issues when it comes down to it, because there is still a lot of anime VTubers, or at least VTubers in general, that has never watched an anime a day in their life, and yet they use an anime aesthetic to get themselves over to do what they need to do. That's crazy. That's weird. And honestly, this VTuber medium is so boring. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, you do get some really good ones that's out there, but a lot of them do the same exact thing for most of the time, and it is so boring. It is so boring. Honestly, I really did miss the day when, you know, Melody went out her way to, you know, make that whole video, like the first video she actually ever really did. I thought it was cool. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was something that we were gonna see a new era when it comes down to, but yeah, it just devolved into play games, do some VTuber stuff, typical that we know now, and that's just kind of how it is. I'm not shitting on VTuber as a whole and all that sort of stuff, but it is just like, you can't see, you know, how it's not kind of having boring elements to it. And that's basically anime tourists as a whole. They don't want to see anything that's unique, weird, and different. They want to see the battle shonen. They want to see epic fights. They want to see stuff that obviously is, you know, things that is very normal to them that they would watch and see, and not necessarily accept any of the weird elements. Hell, that's how you got, you know, the weirdos and the crazy crackheads of the MHA fandom when it comes down to it, and not letting Horikoshi breathe for 5 seconds and letting him do whatever the hell he wants to do with his characters, right? I'm pretty certain we would have probably seen a lot more good content out of any of the hot ass waifus in MHA if it wasn't for the bum ass fan base literally trying to chime in and ruin everything for it. Like, it just genuinely is. Horikoshi did not deserve to get slandered that hard, much less get shitted on so damn much over his bum ass fan base. And I really wish seriously that he didn't have to deal with that on a damn daily basis. I guess I can just end the video by saying this. Anime is home to me. It is by far the most of any medium that has really been there for me in whatever way. And I know it sounds like I'm speaking to like, oh, it's like a real person, it's a real friend. Kinda, back then it was for me, honestly. And still to this point in time, it kinda is. Because it was something that felt like, obviously at a time when, people, when you're growing up, it didn't feel like no one really understands who you are, what you do, what you really like and stuff like that. And no one really could get you. And it feels like anime does. And that's what it was for me, at least, when it comes down to it, right? Because things of what I've seen on TV, when it does pop up and stuff like that, I always play it back in my head back in elementary school, play it back in my head back in middle school, in high school, and things like that, because it's always been something that's fascinated me to the highest end of really no end, honestly. It's just been something that's been something that I cared about from years and years and years, and it just still to this day makes me care about the medium. Hell, this channel would not exist again if it wasn't for people like the Anime Man with their old content. And I guess like learning about the medium in a more technical sort of way as I kind of grew along, and then things of the sort when I got to see more anime on my own that wasn't just stuff that my brother would show me. And essentially it was just something that it was just a wonderland of a world that I didn't think was possible, right? Coming up with so many different ideas and things of the sort like that. Different writing techniques, different art styles make me want to draw stuff, make me want to create my own stories, which I do draw stuff and do create my own stories because of how cool the medium of anime is. I love anime for what it is. I love it that it doesn't change, itself, or at least it, for the most part, it still is what it is and not necessarily beyond bull. And that's what I love about anime. It is what it is. It is still, holding on to its true essence to where it can very much go. And, while I don't necessarily watch a lot of newer shows and more serious shows, I still very much enjoy and appreciate what the medium of anime actually is. And learning about it is also very interesting throughout this whole entire YouTube journey when it comes down to it. It is still some of the most interesting shit that I've ever really learned and seen, and the more you learn about it, the more interesting it really gets. Like the whole thing with me talking about Aurelie and how she was like, her movement was like has inspired like how Mario moves and all that sort of stuff. Most anime fans probably don't even know that, and yet I learned that shit just by doing content creation and just looking around and seeing stuff. And that's just how it is. I love anime for what it is. It should not need to change for any sensitive ass Western people, for any sort of moral ass people, for any sort of changes, just for censorship out the wazoo, anything like that. Anime needs to stay what it is. It needs to stay in its circle of where it needs to be, how it's, created, and all that sort of stuff. It is a beautiful, weird, freaky ass, disturbing, great, wholesome genre that I very much love to the end of time, and I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I don't like anime or just completely phase it out of my life, because it is by far the thing that has been ingrained in me since, obviously a baby. And when it comes down to it, there is no damn way I can just not enjoy it for what it is. And while I may not enjoy everything, I enjoy what it is. And, it may not be up to my taste with certain shows and stuff like that, and that's perfectly fine. There is always other shows I can go out and watch. There is always shows I can very much talk about, disagree with, and very much hype up like it's the greatest thing on the planet. It is what it is when it comes down to it. And ultimately, if you are a real deal anime fan, you would very much enjoy the genre of what it is. You would very much, you know, enjoy the history, understand or at least respect the history of what it is. Try to understand that things are sometimes weird and that's just how it is, and you can just leave stuff alone if it's not for you. And that's, you know, anime is basically something that should be what it is. It should stay where it is, and you know, things like that, right? I know Joey did say about, you know, being old and, you know, being kind of like the unk and, you know, saying things like, you know, keeping it traditional and stuff like that and whatever, basically. But there is a level to it where it's like, yeah, I don't mind if new anime fans were to come in, but you better damn well, you know, respect what the hell it is, because literally we do not necessarily play with people trying to change with that shit, trying to change what it is and stuff like that. If again, Japan doesn't have a problem with how anime is and where they take it and stuff like that for the majority of the country, then ultimately you shouldn't be trying to change what another culture is trying to do. That is just how it is. Any anime tourist that comes through try to be on bullshit, you should be corrected immediately when it comes down to it. And ultimately, if you are just someone new and genuinely want to understand what's going on, welcome aboard. Just have you can have whatever opinion you want to. Just be respectful to what you're trying to say. And ultimately, if you get called out on BS, expect the criticism call out, because ultimately that's just what it is. And ultimately your opinion is going to be out there, and you know, it's going to be out there for people to see. Then yeah, you might get your ass whooping it. If you have a valid opinion, you will have a valid one. If you have an opinion that's basically crap, we're gonna shit on it, and that's just how it is. But ultimately, I think that's essentially all I really want to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow my socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's been Boy J, signing off. Have a blessed day.